And this being the Plymouth Select Board, I will call to order at this time the Tuesday, February 20th, 2024 meeting of Plymouth Select Board. Please join the Select Board in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight's meeting of the Plymouth Select Board is happening in a hybrid format. Members of the public that wish to attend may do so physically at the Great Hall here at Town Hall or virtually over the Zoom webinar platform pursuant to changes made to the open meeting law by the Legislature of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Members of the public who wish to observe the meeting may also do so, if they wish to, by joining us at Comcast Channel 9 or Verizon Channel 47 on PAC TV's television channels, or by watching on PAC TV's website. The Zoom webinar login information is, of course, included on the agenda posted on the town website. We are going to start tonight's meeting in an executive session. The Select Board will hold an executive session this evening pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Clause 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the Chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, and this is specifically in relation to the full sale 277 Taylor Avenue and St. Charles Avenue in value of real property. The Chair does so declare that having this in open session would be detrimental to the negotiating position of the public body. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session?
I'll make that motion. Second.
Mr. Bletzer has moved. Mr. Mahoney has seconded. Any discussion about whether or not we should enter into executive session? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the vote. Mr. Bletzer, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
And myself, yes. It is unanimous. We are in executive session. We will be returning to open session at approximately 6 p.m. Thank you.
Welcome to the Select Board's meeting of Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. First item of business is going to be a public liquor license hearing for Bramhall's Country Store, LLC, 2 Sandwich Road. Sally Bramhall, manager. In accordance with Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended, notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held at Plymouth Town Hall, 26 Court Street, on Tuesday, February 20th, 2024, at 6 p.m. to consider the application for a seasonal wine and malt general on-premises license from Bramhall's Country Store, LLC, 2 Sandwich Road, Sally Bramhall, manager. Description of the premises is as follows. Outdoor venue with picnic tables and a grassy knoll. Bar area will be located outside the adjacent to our walk-in, which will be used to store the kegs. The perimeter will be cordoned off to contain patrons. 1 handicap porta potty and 1 regular porta potty. The main building, which will not have alcohol for sale, is 1 floor with produce, meat, cheese, and other local items for sale. Anyone wishing to be heard on this matter should plan to attend this meeting. I now declare this hearing open, and with the going to represent? Okay, come on up. Identify yourself for the record and make sure the green light's on, please.
I'm sure most of you are familiar with the location. Oh, was it light green? We better now?
You want it to be dark
Bright
green.
green?
Okay.
All right. Should I start all over again?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Canty. Good evening. My name is Bill Sims. I am the attorney for the applicant, Bramhall's Country Store. And as I was about to say, I'm sure the board, most of you are familiar with the location. I'm just going to give you a quick historical perspective of the building and what the project is, and be available to answer any questions. So the building itself is constructed back in, I think, 1750 and actually has some significance as one of the first post offices in the country back then. We are on the 7th generation now of ownership by the Bramhall family, going back to grandfathers, great-grandfathers, and great-great-grandfathers. The store itself at present is a country store. They sell ice cream, lobster rolls, fresh flowers, and produce. And, the continued operation of this will go on regardless of what the decision is tonight by the board. So the family owns not just the subject property, which is at that triangle between Sandwich and River, but they also live across the street and own the property there where they grow the produce and vegetables. So the application before you this evening is for a seasonal beer and wine license at the store. I believe you have a draft of a small plan which shows exactly where it's going to be. If you're looking at it from the intersection of Sandwich and River, Sandwich Road and River, that's a triangular piece of property. And the store, as you see on your plan, is right at the forefront of the property. The location of the proposed service of the beer and wine is going to be at the side of the farm stand. I've got a pretty bad picture here if you don't have it. Familiar with it? I'll share it with you. But essentially, it's going to be at the side of this building right here. So that's where they will store.
Have to be at the mic.
So as you can see, if you're looking at the...
Turn it on, sure.
All right, thank you. As you can see on the, unfortunately it's cropped off from this photo, but on the right side of this shed right here, which is refrigerated, will be the storage of beer kegs and the wine, and there'll be a service window just off the side there where patrons can come, and they will dine at the picnic tables here and also the picnic tables in the rear. Other background issues that I'm sure you're already well aware of. The manager is TIPS certified. We're fully insured. As I said, beer and wine will be stored in the walk-in shed. Shed's going to be remodeled, as I suggested, to serve the patrons from that window. There will be no alcohol served within the main structure of the country store, which will continue to sell what they do already with sundries, lobster rolls and such. The perimeter of the property is going to be blocked off at times to restrict parking and to advise patrons of the boundaries of the property so they don't wander to other places. The hours of operation as presently constituted will be from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. And again, by way of historical significance, 2 years ago, the Bramhall family experimented with a beer garden where on a couple days during the week, they closed down the operation of the store and everything else and just hosted a beer garden there. And it was extremely successful, not so much financially, but patrons enjoyed it, everybody enjoyed it. There were no complaints or issues by patrons or neighbors as to the location, the service, the timing, all those sort of things. It was, at the time, because it was positioned as a beer garden event, it did attract a lot more attention and patronage than we had originally anticipated. So this particular project is going to be more of a routine as an adjunct to the existing process. So people that are coming in for lunch or dinner can get a beer or a glass of wine with their lobster roll or their taco, whatever they're getting there that we serve, that we're currently licensed for. And I think it's going to be well positioned to attract the same clientele, maybe some additional people. I don't think it's going to interfere with the current operation of the project. It's just going to be sort of an add-on value to the current operation. And honestly, from an economic perspective, being able to serve a glass of wine or a beer. It will certainly help the family quite a bit, given the current climate of economics and the cost of running a simple operation with produce, basically, and homemade food like lobster rolls. So this application, as I said, is completely different than the beer garden one, which we feel attracted, quite a bit more volume that we would expect this one to do. This is going to be a regular operation during limited hours, and it's a seasonal. So we're only talking about April to September, October, something like that. At which time, the place has to shut down because they don't have the ability to serve indoors, nor the license to serve indoors, nor the ability to provide any indoor operations. So it's extremely limited in terms of not just the time of year, but weather conditions too are going to limit what they do because they're strictly outdoors. And if it's anything like it's been here, every other weekend has been, it's terrible. We're not going to get a lot of patrons there, but obviously we're hoping for continued good business. But I just wanted everybody to be aware this is an extremely limited application in terms of time, location, and what we're doing. And I've got the Bramhall family here, and if anybody has questions for myself, we are available to discuss.
Okay, well, we're going to hold off a little bit on the question and answers till I open it up to the public and see if anybody's in favor, and then I'll bring it back to the board and we can ask our questions. That's usually how we do it. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? Please come up and identify yourself. You're in favor. Okay, come on up. Ginny, is there anyone online that'd like to speak in favor? If you could just keep your eye on that for me.
Is it already on? Okay. My name is Joseph DiMaggio. I'm in a butter. The beer gardens were always successful but never carried away. So I support the bar.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Good evening. How's everybody doing? The chairs are a little low. You can hardly see you. I live at 5 Sandwich Road in Plymouth, directly across from Brand Hills. My name is Joseph Fiumara. As a matter of fact, I bought the house that Harry Helm had a listing with the sellers back in 2019.
I hope you're happy.
Yes, we're happy. And so I'm for this beer and wine setup that Bramhalls are doing. They're very kind, very gracious, respectful people. We live directly across the street where they've obviously had the beer gardens, and we've had no problems at all. I've attended a couple of beer gardens, and everything was very controlled, and everything worked very well. So I am in favor of it, and thank you for giving me the time to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Please come up and identify yourself.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to express to you the reasons why I am opposed to granting Bramhalls this liquor license. My name is Ken Began. I'm a lifelong Plymouth resident, and I'm here this evening to represent Chiltonville Congregational Church. Our church property abuts the full length of the Bramhall property on 2 of its 3 sides. Our church parsonage property directly abuts the entire width of the Bramhall property on its southernmost boundary line. Our church building property abuts the full length of the Bramhall property on its easternmost property line and is separated only by the width of River Street. I believe the entire neighborhood, whether they know it now or not, I believe the entire neighborhood, except for the Bramhalls, will be adversely affected and impacted if this liquor license is approved. But my church will be adversely affected even more so than most of the neighbors. First of all, we are a church, a house of worship. And under Massachusetts law, additional procedures, caution, and scrutiny is required to be applied by this board when considering the granting of a liquor license to an applicant who is in close proximity to a church. Chiltonville Congregational Church is on one side 0 feet from the Bram Hall property, and on the other side 30 feet from the Bram Hall property. Several distinctly different and equally compelling reasons exist to deny this liquor license, any one of which arise beyond the threshold needed to deny this liquor license. The most obvious and the least addressed, the most obvious and the most glaring to flat out deny this liquor license is the wholly inadequate available parking. At best, each person's car, if perfectly positioned, the maximum capacity is 16 cars. Many times in the summer, Bram Hall's parking lot is completely full and overflowing with just the selling of corn and ice cream. This is an entirely residential neighborhood with narrow and twisting roads. No on-street parking exists, nor could it ever be safe to park on River Street or Sandwich Road. This would leave only illegal and unwanted parking on private property and the resulting damage and nuisance to the neighbors it will cause. Mr. Sims has undoubtedly done his job, and he's seen to downplay the lack of parking by proposing perhaps some kind of a limitation of parking. What Mr. Sims will not tell you is that not only will a liquor license draw more traffic to Bram Halls, which is the point, it's a for-profit business and should be, not only will it bring more traffic to Bram Halls, making the lack of parking worse, but as we all know, when people buy alcohol, they want to stay longer. That's part of the point. They relax, they enjoy themselves, they converse, etc. They have a second drink and stay longer. The result is that the same cars fill the same few slots for a much longer period of time, creating less frequent turnover of parking and making the parking problem exponentially worse. And at some point, it becomes an unwanted neighborhood nuisance. The second qualifying reason to deny a liquor license to Bram Halls is that under Section 16C of the Massachusetts Liquor Control Act, it states, quote, premises located within a radius of 500 feet of a church shall not be licensed to sell alcoholic beverages unless the local licensing authority, that would be you, determines in writing and after a hearing that the premises are not detrimental to the spiritual activities of that church. I am here to express the fact that, yes, the issuing of this liquor license to Bram Halls is detrimental to the spiritual activities of Chiltonville Congregational Church, who's also been there for 212 years. And I and other members would be available to address the specifics at length of the detrimental effects that will be caused to our church if and when you call that special hearing required of you by Massachusetts law under Section 16C of MLCA. This process is required to protect churches located within 500 feet. My church is located 0 feet on one side and 30 feet on the other. Thirdly, never before has the Board of Selectmen approved this type of a liquor license in an entirely residential, thickly settled neighborhood, and for good reason that it's never been done. And it should not be done to approve this license. If approved, it would allow alcohol to be sold, even if they don't take advantage of it. If approved, it would allow alcohol to be sold in this residential neighborhood 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, 11 in the morning to 11 at night. And if granted extended hours, it could be from 8 in the morning to 2 in the morning. In addition to being able to sell all types of malt liquors and wines under this license, an expansion could be granted to allow Bram Halls to sell all forms of cordials and liquors. Although this license is called a seasonal liquor license, it's actually a license for 9.5 months of the year, from April 1st to January 15th. Whether Bramhalls chooses to use it for the entire 9.5 months at this point in time is irrelevant. They can. Essentially, if you were to approve this application, you're allowing an outdoor pub to operate in a quiet, historic, residential neighborhood in Chiltonville, all for the benefit of one family at the expense of the rest of the neighborhood. In closing, as selectmen, your primary obligation and responsibility to the residents of Plymouth is to be certain to make decisions that do not harm people, their quality of life, or their neighborhoods. You should make decisions that keep people safe, protect private property, and allow and encourage people to live quiet, moral, and peaceful lives in their homes and in their neighborhoods. I ask that you deny this application for a seasoned wine and malt general on-premises license from Bramhalls Country Store, LLC. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? No one online? Oh,
Hey.
Thank you. Greg Carey, 16 Speedway Lane, Plymouth, Massachusetts. I'm also a member of Chiltonville Congregational Church. And I guess, Ken's words are great, but also what I worry about is the Congregational Church has a very small parking area. There's a paved lot, and then across the street for access to the cemetery, there is like an activity field that's sometimes used for parking, but we also use for church activities. So one of the worries that we have, or I have specifically, is when there is some sort of parking area needed when they cordon off this area, people are probably going to park in those areas. So one, it could damage the activity field, which is grass. It's not a paved field. We actually have to be careful when parking on it because it gets torn up and we have to pay someone to go grade it and add, seed and whatnot to it. The second part of it, too, is sometimes during the operation of the store, what's going to happen when there's a church activity, we may need our own parking. I mean, we don't want to be a bad neighbor and have to call the police every 5 minutes if there's some sort of, a line of cars parking on there, because eventually that will get pretty old. But we worry about the access we're going to have to our own parking area when there is a time where there could be some church activity that coincides with some sort of event. And then the other questions are, even though they're stating that they're only going to be open during certain hours, but what specifically would the permit allow for times of the day, times of the week, Sundays? It would be an open permit that allows for wide interpretation, or would it be a specific that really does zero in on what times could be things to be parked on? The beer garden was mentioned, and I know at the time there was an agreement between the Bramhalls organization and the church to, we want to be a good neighbor, allow them to park over in our area for that one-time event. And we actually consulted our lawyer to make sure there was no, insurance obligations, or what if something bad happened, would be obligated to be sued or something like that. But then when you bring this into case, if more people do park in our lot, illegally, what would that do to us? Legally, as well as being able to use our own lot. Those are my concerns. Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Thank you. I'm Bob Colburn. I'm a Plymouth resident, a Chiltonville Church member, and I'm here to ask you respectfully to deny this license for all the reasons that the two gentlemen preceding me just expressed. We're particularly concerned with this parking situation. There's been many times, we pretty much have activities at the church many days a week. I have driven in there where people from Bramhalls have been in the restricted parking area that are for handicapped people. And we have a number of people in the church who use walkers or canes to get into the church, and that's my biggest concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
I could have 30 seconds. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
The only reason the neighbors didn't have any complaints is because 100% of the parking, we tried to be good neighbors with Ben, all right? And so we bent over backwards. all right? 100% of the parking for that entire event, and it was crazy, all right? To say it was anything low-key, it was crazy. But it was only going to be for the 4 Fridays in August, all right? 100% of the parking was on our land. They had cordoned off everything. So the reason, if it worked, is because all of the insanity was taking place on our property, not on a nice neighbor or 2 nice neighbors or a dozen nice neighbors. All of that would end. It would end for them because there's not going to be, here on out, they've changed the rules. And trying to accommodate them and be good guys, that stops with a liquor license like what they're requesting. It was different when it was the 4 Fridays in August, okay? And it was hugely successful. And the issue is, it's going to be, they are underselling it. It's going to be hugely successful, except there's not going to be any parking. What happens with the, is it required that you get a lobster roll? Or can you go in this area and meet 2 or 3 of your buddies and just have a beer or 2? The issue is that how about if the dad just wants to have a beer or 2 and he's got his 2 or 3 kids, they've got their ice cream. Are they coming into that little cordoned off section? Or dad wants 1 more beer, the kids are done with their ice cream cone and they're off, playing up on the knoll. Is dad really paying attention? And you've got a full parking lot. So these kids are walking between the cars in both ways. It's dangerous. It's not sound. And they're not going to be able to park on our parking lot. That was the only reason it worked. And I was shocked. Ben gave me a call, just a courtesy call, saying, oh, we're already doing this. And it was a day or 2 or 3 days before I got the letter in the mail. So it wasn't advanced planning on their part to come and talk to us first, all right? And so they've changed the way it's been. I love that family, okay? We've had their weddings and their funeral in our church. But they're the ones that are changing the rules. This is the first time I've ever known them to do something that would not help the neighborhood. And this is doing that. They've gone way over the line with this. Please deny it.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? I now declare the hearing closed and bring it. Sure you can. Yep, sure you can. Yep.
So I think the characterization by Mr. Began is inappropriate, inadequate, and frankly, just not appropriate. He's trying to characterize the country store with picnic tables as a beer and a liquor establishment, a pub, a bar. It's not what it is. The business there is busy as it is. Is parking an issue? Yes, it always has been. I don't see it radically changing. It did change when we had the beer garden. The beer garden attracted a certain element for that particular time because that's all it was. The store was closed. We weren't serving anything. It was just a beer garden, much like many other beer gardens in this town, and this board has licensed many of them. I don't have to remind anybody of the various operations. So in terms of the church parking, that's easily addressed. So there was a simpatico relationship between the church and the Bramhall family for a number of years. Church was allowed to park on Sunday mornings on the Bramhall premises, and there's a small lot behind the church or to the right of it, which they allowed the Bramhall patrons to use. That's fine. We don't need their property. We won't use their property. The parking will be restricted to what's available, and if people can't park there, they can't park there. They'll have to wait for somebody to leave or park somewhere else and walk. That's all there is to it. The parking issue is not the problem. I think the characterization by Mr. Began about the type of patron that's going to be there is completely inappropriate and just not accurate at all. We're looking at a country store that serves food. The hours are from 11 to 8. I don't think we're going to anticipate. He's projecting, what he sees as a potential problem with no background, no evidence to support it. He's going to say, here's what's going to happen. We're going to have people here, kids with their dads coming after a softball, a baseball game, and the dad's going to want 1 beer, 2 beers, 3 beers. That's completely without any basis or foundation whatsoever. This is an adjunct to the current business. It's completely appropriate for the area, and the church hours are basically on Sunday. We are willing to amend our hours on Sunday until church services are over, so that there's absolutely no question that all the church congregants have attended services and left. We're willing to move, the Sunday hours, to 12:30 or 1 o'clock if necessary to accommodate the church. We're not looking to be bad neighbors. We're just looking to continue the business that we've had for a number of years and add to it, what we think is a value add to the process. I don't see this as an unwanted neighborhood nuisance. The people that actually live in the neighborhood have spoken tonight, and they have been in support of this. The people that are opposed to it are church members who do not live in the neighborhood. So I understand, that Sundays and maybe an occasional, day during the week when the garden club meets or something like that, there might be a few more vehicles at the church or people attending that. But it's not going to be, this is not an overwhelming situation. This is, an 11 to 8 operation, and Mr. Began also talked about, the expansion of the available alcohol. This is a beer and wine operation. We're not starting to do cordials. We're not in a position to do that, and I think that some of the characterizations here are absolutely inappropriate, not applicable to our current situation. As I said, we will offer on Sundays when the church has the most volume to accommodate them. We will not open the service of beer and wine till after 12:30, after all the patrons and congregants have left the church. And as far as parking goes, there's only so much we can do. We will accept all the parking that we are available to. We're going to cordon off the property. We'll monitor it as best we can. People can find other ways to transport themselves there. I can't, and I can promise that, Mr. Began and the church that, there will be no parking on their property. They can easily put up their own barriers, and we will certainly encourage all the patrons with signage and advertising that there's no parking outside of the, Bram Hall property. And I don't know what else we can possibly do, but the basis for the license, I think, is legitimate, well-founded, and deserved. Thank you.
Hold on, I got a question.
Okay, this is it. Come on up.
What Mr. Sims doesn't know is that when they were having their beer garden, beer fest, I would go over and I would sit on the knoll and I would watch. First of all, it was a tremendous amount. I'm not speaking the truth. Ben could get up here and say the same thing if he watched what was going on. It was an issue, okay? People were walking back and forth across the street. That area of River Street, okay, you come up over that knoll, you better either run like crazy or get hit. It's dangerous. We actually spoke about them putting out signs to slow down before over that knoll. But anyways, during that beer garden, beer fest, whatever it was, I would go and I'd sit on the knoll and I'd watch the activity, okay? No parking on their property. It was all on ours. And I'd watch the activity. And you would see 2 or 3 guys, unlike what Mr. Sims has said, 2 or 3 guys that would show up just to have beer and sit and chat and wander around. It wasn't, the whole thing was cordoned off, not this one little area. And yes, there would be parents that would have beer as well, and the kids would run off and play. They actually had a few extra things set up, I think, on the knoll that kids could play, all right? The case is not being overstated. Mr. Sims hasn't even come up with, somehow magically, they're going to shut off the business and say, oh, I'm sorry, you can't come and have a beer. You can't come and buy your produce and your corn right now because all 16 of our slots are filled. Come back later. They're not going to, human nature. It doesn't do that. They're gonna park illegally on other people's property, and they don't have a plan. What they could do, all right, you could deny this. They could come up with a plan that makes some sense and present it next year. But they can't park on our property, period. We're not their solution to their commercial business.
Okay, thank you. Certainly.
Is it Mr. Began?
Yes.
So you used a term earlier, I forget what it was, but you referenced the events or whatever. So each summer, the last couple of summers, it's just been 4 Fridays in August, the beer gardens?
They didn't do it this last year, okay?
In '22, they didn't do it.
They did it, what 2 years
23,
did
I
you
meant.
do it, Ben? And then you did it 1 year after that?
It was 500 feet.
Okay, so 2021, according to Ben, 2021 and 2022.
Okay, and what was it, just strictly 4 Friday night beer gardens in August?
Was it Thursday? Okay, and it was just for the month of August, correct? So it was just... No. I limited you to 4 Fridays or Thursdays in the month of August, period. What you wanted to go for was more than that. I said, no, if you're going to use our parking exclusively, which you did, okay?
Okay, so
it's-
Mr. Began.
Yes.
So let's walk through what you witnessed on one of those typical nights.
Okay.
Whether it's a Thursday or Friday.
All right, so
so on your property of the church, how many cars were you facilitating parking when at peak time?
30.
And with that basic...
And on more than one occasion, not to make a big deal out of it, okay, on more than one occasion, the police showed up because you'd get somebody aggravated at somebody else because of parking. They weren't moving their car fast enough for somebody else. I mean, the reason the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has such lengthy regulations on alcohol is alcohol doesn't make people better. It takes people and changes their behavior. That's what happens. That's why it should be regulated, and that's why it is regulated. And there was evidence of that. And yes, you'd see families that would have the best time, and the kids would be fine. The point is that none of that parking is going to be available to
All right,
them.
so you're going to eliminate that option this year, which you're telling me is 25 to 35 spaces in that ballpark area. So when these nights occurred, you would sometimes or routinely see congestion on both river and
the police would show up. Go ahead.
because of congestion and traffic was unable to pass. Is that what you're telling us?
Yes, and my biggest concern in watching is that you've got little kids and you've got families crossing that street back and forth. My point is that I kind of held my breath, being the good neighbor, for those 4 Thursday or Fridays in the month of August. That's one of the reasons I wanted to be around, was to see it. And it concerned me because eventually somebody was going to get hurt, and it was going to be a kid. And the thing is, the same kind of thing is going to happen even in their own lot. When you've got 16 cars jammed in just perfectly, that's the maximum that they're going to be able to squeeze in there, because I've measured it, okay? And something's going to happen. In between cars that are 18 inches apart
get
from
it.
each other, kids run around and have fun. That's what happens.
I hear you.
So
Thank you. That's all I had.
Mr. Bledsoe?
Mr. Began, can you back up? This is actually a question for both of you. You got two neighbors that have gotten along for a couple 100 years, okay? And it's really sad to see this relationship falling apart right here over a liquor license. From what I'm hearing from you, the parking is the issue.
parking is one of the
It's the
issues.
main-
It's not the only issue.
Yeah, but let's take the beer gardens out. There's no beer gardens. And this board knows nothing about the beer gardens. There was no complaints that ever came before us. We know nothing about that. So tonight, what's before us tonight is, and I know I'm familiar with Bramhall's, because some of the court people used to go there for lunch. It's, to be quite honest, it's a great place. But it's not a place I'm going after a softball game to have beers. I mean, no offense. If I want to have a lobster roll and a beer, yes, but I'm not, the boys aren't going to go hang out there. And so we have a place that a very reputable family, your church is very reputable too, coming before us because they want to add beer and wine to complement what they already serve there. Okay, and I saw their layout with the picnic tables and all that. First of all, it's not a bar. There's no bar there. It's all go sit at the picnic tables. So we're not seeing that. It's not a nightclub because it's going to be closed at 8 o'clock. And that can be stipulated on the license, so if you're worried about that. The first question I wanted to ask, and I should have you folks talked about this, about coming up with some kind of a plan? We had this situation with the temple down on, what's that street is that, by Mayflower Street? And La Bamba was applying for a license. And they came before us, and they were all upset about, the noise, there was going to be, the issue is the parking. And I asked them, they talked about, if you guys talked about this, and they hadn't. They sat down and they talked about no outside music, or they would have speakers, but they would not have it during services. They have their services on I believe, Sunday and Saturday, and Saturday and some Sundays school. So they worked it out. They came back the next week. They worked it out. They had a plan, and everybody was happy. And I'll tell you, La Bama's been there a couple of years. We've not gotten one complaint from them. So I don't know if there's something that Attorney Sims, maybe you can come up. I can ask you this, because the parking seems to be the issue.
Don't limit it to that, because
Right now, it's the main issue is parking.
No.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to tell you how I feel, Mr.
Okay,
Began.
that's fine.
If he had 50 parking spaces, I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
If he had picked 50 parking spots, I wouldn't be here. I already know
So
what's
it's
going to
parking.
happen.
What I'm trying to say, it's parking, and I'm just trying to, is there something you can, I mean, this is you even said it, they've gotten married in your church, you've done funerals there, these folks you've been neighbors with them for so long, and I find it hard to believe that you can't sit down. These are great people in front of me that just spoke with you. There's some nice people out there that spoke for them, that you can't sit down and work out some logistics. I don't know. I know I've been to the restaurant, but I can't see, is there anywhere, Attorney Sims, you can find other parking? Whether it's through
Let me answer
and
something.
I don't think you want to.
Point of order, could the question go to the individual that's being asked the question, please?
Yes. Is
Okay.
it me?
I'm going to throw a question out to Attorney Sims, Mr. Began. Excuse me, Kevin Canty keeps me in line with the formalities here. So,
Well, to address the first component of your question, Mr. Bletzer, did we speak? Yes. Ben Bramhall and I called Mr. Began last night and asked what accommodations can we possibly make so that we can agree on the permitting process here. And he, quote unquote, said there are no accommodations. There's nothing you can do.
so my next question to you is there any, in that area, any way you can figure out to get more parking spaces without the church?
It's
And without affecting the church?
The topography and the land ownership is restricted. There's no question about it. We can probably squeeze a couple more spaces on the property itself. But in terms of, and I've already told Mr. Began, since he's insisted, we will not continue to use their church parking lot. The extra lot, which is sort of adjacent to the church, which is the grassy area that you spoke about earlier. We said, we won't use that. You don't want us to, we won't do it. It's that simple. People will have to find a way to park publicly and transport themselves there, or come and, carpool, whatever it is. The clientele at the country store, 9 times out of 10, are the people coming there for an ice cream cone more than a beer and wine. It's been going on forever. The parking's been tough, and people figure it out. They come there, they buy lobster rolls, they buy lobsters, they buy produce. They buy an ice cream cone, they leave. Teams after baseball, Little League games come there for an ice cream, they have their ice cream with the kids, and they leave. This is not going to dramatically change the parking situation because someone comes there for a beer and a lobster roll. This is not the pub or bar that they make it out to be. It's, as I said early on, it's just to be an adjunct. So instead of having, a water, somebody wants to have a beer, fine, have a beer. As you said, this is not going to attract the people that are going to sit there and drink beer and wine all night. Those people are going to other venues where they can drink things other than beer and wine and spend time. This is not the location for that. The hours are not conducive to that. Again, back to parking, all we can do is restrict it and advertise and promote that you're not to park in the church parking lot, and limit what we can get in and out of there. There's never been an incident of hazardous, behavior in the parking lot with cars. He's painting this to be, something like a bumper car, venue where, kids are getting mowed down left and right. That's not what goes on there. It's never happened there. There's no incidents there whatsoever. People are conscientious, they're observant, and they come with families. They get in, they get out without issues. There's plenty of space for the number of cars that we have.
So I'll leave you with this. I don't think it's going to change what goes on there, having beer and wine. I really don't. I just don't see it. But if it does, obviously we're going to have some folks coming before us with complaints. But I'm hoping that it just stays just how it's been. Hope the business is good and everybody's respectful of the church. But I'm going to vote in favor of this. So thank you.
That's clearly the issue before us, and I promised Mr. Began that we will have our customers not trespass on church property. It will be promoted heavily, and we will make sure that if we have to police it ourselves, we will. But I think, putting up some kind of a small barrier on that particular lot that he's talking about would be something that would certainly, discourage anybody parking there. It's pretty simple, and, in conjunction with us saying, don't park there, and putting up a little, cones with a rope and a sign, church parking only, people aren't going there. They're not going to knock it down. It's not the kind of clientele this place is going to attract. So I think we'll be very reticent and aware of all of that information, and will be well behaved as they have been for the last hundreds of years. So,
Mr. Helm?
oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm done. Unless there's another question from the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Both of you can stay up. I'd like to harken back to an event or series of events that we dealt with a couple years ago that Mr. Bletzer referred to, and that was the La Bamba Taco and Tequila next to the synagogue. Okay, very similar situation. Liquor license involved. Concerns on the part of the neighboring property. Okay, once again, and just this isn't in any particular order, I think both of you are involved in suppositions. You're not pointing to any real, you're making conclusions based upon no actual evidence. So I think you're both doing the same thing. And so I have a question to Mr. Sims, Attorney Sims. Was the last night's attempt to discuss with Mr. Began et al. This proposal, was that the only time that you discussed this with this group of people from the Congregational Church?
From my point, yes. I don't know about Ben's attempts to reach out to them prior. I mean, there's been a very good relationship for a long time, and maybe Ben can speak to that more than I can about his attempts to speak and communicate. But I don't think, even if we had reached out at the day that we filed the application, before we filed the application, if there would have been any radical change in position from Mr. Began, because as he said to me, there are no accommodations that we can make. So as much as we attempted to negotiate something that would appease or somehow reach any kind of a middle ground with respect to the parking issue, I was met with a firm no
Well,
thank you.
okay, but as Mr. Begin has said, and in his statement, there are a multitude of factors that they are considering, including, unfortunately, moral determinations on the part of people drinking the beer or the wine. But they have a number of concerns beyond the parking. Okay, and this, to me, is almost an exact duplicate of what went on between La Bamba and the synagogue. Okay, and they stood up in front of us and they were a world apart from each other. And I am not going to vote in favor of it, not because I don't think that it's bad or that it's a bad idea. I don't think I can vote for something that you guys have not really talked about. Okay, the two parties with La Bamba went off to the side and they came back and they weren't just throwing ideas. Well, we'll put up signs. We'll do this. They weren't doing it at the meeting. They came up with a whole list of things that they were going to do. Okay, and they presented it to us and we gave La Bamba the liquor license. They worked together. And that's what I suggest needs to happen here, because you keep referencing hundreds of years of good neighborly behavior. And it seems to me that without a sit-down discussion, okay, that both sides come to the meeting wanting to come to some sort of consensus, both sides, you're going to violate those hundreds of years, and you will not have that good relationship anymore. And I don't think that that's what Plymouth is supposed to be about. So on that sort of thing, I think you need to sit down and come up with an agreement. If you can't, you can't. Then you come back and tell us that you can't. But I think that the process needs to be served. That's my opinion. The second thing would be to, I guess, the town manager. Mr. Began mentioned a state statute about we need some sort of special hearing when it's within 500 feet of a church.
Looks like Mr. Canty wants to respond to that.
So the relevant section is Massachusetts General Law 138, Section 16C, which reads in relevant part, premises located within a radius of 500 feet of a school or church shall not be licensed for the sale of alcoholic beverages unless the local licensing authority determines in writing and after a hearing that the premises are not detrimental to the educational and spiritual activities of said school or church. So it does not require a special hearing. This is a hearing. It just requires written findings that it would not be detrimental to the educational and spiritual activities of said school or church.
Thank you, Mr. Canty. So basically, that's obviously not an issue that would prevent us voting tonight. But I do believe that the issue that prevents us from voting tonight is one of proper process, a nod to, an attempt by neighbors to actually work this out between themselves, and come back to us with their solution that, hopefully will make it palatable to both sides.
I understand your position, Mr. Helm, and I totally appreciate it, and I am not familiar with the substance of the previous case with La Bamba. I don't know what the issues were, so I can't really speak to that. I can tell you what the restaurant is, and it's nothing like what is proposed to the board tonight.
Point of order.
That is a full-service alcohol.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that I actually asked Attorney Sims' opinion on what I said.
I think you just suggested
it was
that
a statement. It was a statement to the two of you to get together, or your groups to get together and hammer this out. It's not about, you do not need to convince me of anything here tonight. That's how I feel. That's the part of the process we're at. We're at the board discussion, and we can ask questions. And I asked you a question, and that's just, I appreciate all that you've said. And I realize also that you're just going to say the same things again, which you've already said 2 to 3 times. So So the reality is, my suggestion stands as it is. It is not about arguing with you about it. This is my suggestion. I think it makes the most sense. It's the most neighborly thing to do. And, you know, I mean, I'm not even asking you why you clearly don't want to do this. I'm not asking you that, but you clearly don't want to do this. And I'm not sure, and I'm not going to ask Mr. Began if he doesn't want to do it. I'm just telling both groups, why don't you follow what La Bamba and the synagogue did and get together and figure this thing out? Thank you.
So I just want to say that I think you're misrepresenting.
Point of
All right,
order.
okay.
Point of
Yeah.
order.
That's it.
We're in questions. You haven't been asked a question. I understand that questions are being mixed with some discussion, but you haven't been asked a question. I do have a question, though, if I could ask a question
Please,
while
Mr.
we're in
Canty.
questions. Thank you. So this is for you, Attorney Sims. So the relevant statute does say that in order for this license to be issued, the authority would need to determine in writing after this hearing that the premises are not detrimental to the educational and spiritual activities of said school or church. So we've talked a lot about parking. Other issues were brought up by the opponent. I personally find those issues to be speculative in nature. I think the parking is the more concrete issue that's been addressed based on a past practice with a different but still similar in some ways experience that they had, which is giving them some pause. You had said earlier that a suggestion you had was some signage that Bramhalls would put up, as well as some barriers and perhaps signage that the church would put up, I think you suggested. So first of all, is that your suggestion that the Bramhalls put up some signage at their expense and that the church put up barriers and signage on their property at the church's expense?
So that was my initial statement. In response to questions or presentation about how we would handle, parking situation. I think without the authority of my client, if necessary, we would contribute to the church for barriers and signage to assist them so they wouldn't have to pay out of pocket for something like that. And again, I'm just putting it out there without the authority from my client, but I would hope that they would agree that they would contribute to that. Again, working with them to alleviate this biggest concern, which is before the board tonight, which is the parking concern. So yes, we were certainly going to establish, protocols with parking on our property, and would certainly assist the church to some degree of, regulating and establishing some boundaries for their property so that our patrons don't overflow and trespass. So yes.
Would you like to take a moment? I will tell you, my opinion is that them having to pay for signage and barriers would be a detriment. But if you were willing to contribute the Bramhalls to that, not contribute by meaning pay some of it, but pay for reasonable barriers and signage that they may need to install to secure their spiritual and educational activities and prevent them from being harmed by this, that would change my opinion. So if you'd like to step away from the mic and take a moment to speak to your clients, I would certainly encourage that, because I think it would have a material impact on the outcome of at least my vote.
I think I should, because I've spoken on behalf of my clients many times before without their authority. I'm not going to get myself in trouble again tonight,
All right.
So I'll take that opportunity.
Thank you.
Is this a good time for this?
Might as well. Thank you.
Well, I actually gauged my client's response correctly this time, and they are willing to pay for the accommodation of establishing barriers for the church.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mr. Sims,
Mr. Mahoney, yes.
Mr. Began earlier did you agree in his characterization of what occurred in the last year or two with respect to the congestion of traffic, and that occasionally that the police were called to assist people and vehicles. Was that an accurate depiction, what he said earlier?
I got to ask my client. I wasn't there, so
Okay.
let me ask Mr. Bramhall. Yeah, were there police call? Were there traffic issues with police were calling?
I think it was congested. We never got a call from the police, though, during any of those years, no.
Well, you might not have been called, but did you see, I guess, a patrolman show up occasionally and just kind of facilitate the issue?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
So, Mr. Sim or
Yes.
Mr. Bramhall, so in a perfect world, you're looking to get approval for this license, and if that were to happen, the beer gardens will become a thing of the past, and this will supplant that, correct?
Correct. And the beer gardens were a special event thing, which attracted much more volume than a day-to-day operation would in our estimation. And as was suggested by Mr. Helm, you're right, there is some supposition there, but again, we anticipate that this is just going to be adjunct to the ongoing business, not a special event night.
All right, so now I have another question to Mr. Began, and I'm hoping my colleague, Mr. Canty, can bring that terminology up with respect to when are your services, Mr. Began, especially on weekends?
It's not just about services, sir. But our service, we start showing up at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And we're there till 1:30 or 2 in the afternoon. Sometimes we meet Sunday evenings. As a matter of fact, the reason that there are fewer of our members of congregation here right now is because there's an important meeting going on as we speak at the church. All right? There are things that are going on pretty much every day. So it's
that's
not
why
simply a Sunday morning thing.
I got a squint here, but it says not detrimental to the educational and spiritual activities of the school or church. So that's why, because Mr. Sims earlier had said, okay, we're not going to start serving until 12:30 on Sundays. Okay, so hearing a statement like that, I would have been under the impression that maybe everybody is gone from a 11 or 11:30 service and is long gone and the parking lot is empty. But you're saying that you pretty much go all day on Sunday.
No. I did not say all day.
No,
But we're there till 1:30, 2 o'clock,
Okay.
absolutely. But that's not the only time that we're meeting.
I heard that part, yes. You
Okay,
said you come back
sorry.
in the evening. You said you come back in the evening sometimes on Sunday or all the time?
Sometimes. And we're there. There are activities on Monday. There are activities on Tuesday. There are activities on Wednesday.
Are those morning
Thursday
activity?
maybe not so
Are those
much.
morning
Some
activity?
are morning and some are evening. For instance, Wednesday nights the men get together for a Bible study. Tuesday during the day there's a group of ladies that get together. On Wednesday the garden club will come once a month.
So are you going to?
Go ahead.
Would you construe any overlap of this activity occurring across the street as negatively impacting your educational or spiritual experience?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Are there
That's
any
it.
more questions from the board or comments? No more questions or comments? Okay, close the hearing and bring it back to the board. I'm just going to, my history with places of congregation and churches, examples, I remember the Rio in North Plymouth, and there's also now the Patty Shack right next to St. Mary's. When I was on the board, I asked them to bring a letter of support from the church or the congregation. It'd be much easier for me to make my decision with that. Rio did. Patty Shack hasn't applied yet. But that would be my answer no matter what part of town it is. And the board's right. I think the situations are a little different between, what is it, La Bamba and this one. It's even harder because it's a well-known family. You all work hard, and I visit your ice cream shop constantly. And I bring my grandchildren there, and anybody that comes to town, I love it. However, it's in an extremely residential area also. Very tight in the the V there. So I can't support this as of right now for those reasons. If you can come back and, we'll see what the board is going to decide anyway, but right now I'm a no, and that's why. Mr. Helm?
Chairman Quintal, I agree with you. This is different. There are different details between La Bamba and the synagogue. But effectively, there's a very similar aspect to it. When they came in front of us for the hearing, both sides were adamant that their position was their position and could not change. And it is more than just the parking. And I'm going to say once again, I can't support this right now. I could support this if they got together and came back and actually sat down and figured out a way that this would work. No bargaining at this period on who's going to pay for what barriers or anything like that. And I think that to grant this at this time, even though I will say once again, I actually don't have necessarily a problem with this, other than the fact that the neighboring church has a lot of problems with it that need to be listened to. The nature of what we have here is, if without that process, I'm not sure that either side will ever be happy with what goes on unless they sit down and figure this out and come to agreements around each of the issues that either side feels is important. And I think that unhappiness will continue. I don't think it's something that we want in our community. And I think that Plymouth is made up of people who can work together and not just go to a board and say yes or no. We don't like it, we like it, vote for one of us. The two sides should get together, discuss it, and come back and present their proposal.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Blitzer and then Mr. Canty.
I think that the problem here is we keep hearing about the beer garden. The congestion with traffic was when there was a beer garden. I don't hear it when it wasn't a beer garden. So I don't think this concept is going to change. The only difference is, instead of getting a lemonade with my lobster roll, I can get a glass of wine, or I can get a beer if I want. But this is not going to be a bar, a nightclub. It's going to be closed early. And we have to treat this license just like we treated La Bama with the synagogue. It's just like all licenses. Licenses get issued. If there's complaints on the license, the people can come back to us and tell us about the complaints, and we can make a judgment from there. We can't make a decision on what might happen. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what the future is going to bring, but I'll tell you what. This family, they're very responsible. They're not running a bar room. They're not running a pub. This is, you get a lobster roll. Kevin likes lobster with a glass of wine, and then you're going to pick your produce up, get an ice cream, and you're going to go home. Get in your car. You guys are on notice, Attorney Sims. You know what the issues are. You know exactly what they are, because you're all very, very intelligent people. And I'm hoping that you're going to leave here, because I'm ready to vote. I will vote for this. And because if I had a crystal ball, I don't think there's going to be problems in the future. If there's traffic issues, you're going to have to handle that. You're going to get complaints. They're going to come back here, or the police are going to be making complaints. But I don't foresee it, because I think that you're going to make accommodations to make sure, whether it's having somebody watching the cars coming in and saying, hey, you can't park there, this license, you want to make this work, and I think you will do it. It's a family operation, And so I'm ready to vote because, you know, there's no beer gardens anymore. This is not what's being proposed here. And being in the restaurant business, I looked at your outdoor area, and I know exactly it's going to be a nice, quiet, low-key place. I really believe that. And if it isn't, you come back. It's your right to do that. And you know, I respect you coming. I understand why you're coming, but I'm ready to vote. I'm in favor of it.
Mr. Canty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I largely agree with my colleague, Selectman Blitzer. I think that while some other potential detriments were cited by the opponents, I think they were speculative in nature about safety and other related concerns. I think, however, there are some relevant concerns put out by the opponents about parking and traffic, because even the proponents' own statement admitted that as it is now, the business has occasionally issues with parking. And that's not the beer garden, and that's just its current operating model, where when you do get that lobster roll, all you can get is the lemonade or what have you. However, the fact that the applicant is willing to contribute and pay for, in fact, signage and physical barriers to offset any spillover parking that may or may not be reminiscent of what happened at a beer garden series, or in the general operation of this business from time to time. I'm sure there are peaks and valleys. At any of those peaks, I think is a significant factor weighing in favor of, at this stage, prospectively, permitting the license to proceed. I do think if there are further issues, parking-related or other issues, it obviously could be readdressed. I agree with Mr. Blitzer as well that a beer garden attracts different clientele for a different purpose than people who are incidentally buying alcohol largely while they're also eating a lobster roll or having an ice cream, or someone in their family is doing one of those things. Beer gardens are primarily for the consumption of beer, hence the prominence of beer in their name. So, for those reasons, I am prepared to vote in favor based on those bases. That's my comments.
Mr. Mahoney.
I agree with multiple things that my colleagues to the left have said. I'm leaning towards supporting this. I especially agree with Mr. Helm with respect to the outrage from Mr. Sim and his client last night. You know, that should have been done weeks or months beforehand, and there should have been a sit-down. You know, having said that, the comment from my colleague to my immediate left on the beer garden versus the regular liquor license, I completely agree with. And there is a remedy here, Mr. Began, and to the rest of your individuals, members of the church. You can come back to us. I've seen this happen before. If there are any issues, you've got to document them. They've got to be communicated, and we can address them. And we can address them instantaneously. So,
Wish of the board?
I'll make a motion that we approve this.
Motion by Mr. Blitzer,
I second that motion.
second by Mr. Canty. Discussion. Mr. Blitzer.
I vote yes.
Mr. Helm.
No.
Mr. Canty.
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney. Yes. And myself, no. 3-2. Thank you. I'm going to move around a little bit here and go right to the property tax exemption. Article 9.
Good evening. Ann Dunn, Director of Assessing for Plymouth. So Articles 9A through 9D, I think I'll wait a minute.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Articles 9A through 9D have to do with property tax exemptions. The first article, 9A, currently the town of Plymouth has Clause 17D on the books, and it is for seniors 70 years of old, surviving spouse, or minors of deceased parents. And currently, we have a current asset limit of $62,650. In 2018, the statute changed, so now there is a Clause 17E, which would increase the asset limit each year by the Consumer Price Index. For fiscal '24, that was 1.65065%. So that current limit of 62,650 is with that increase for fiscal '24. So we're just asking to stay current with the statutes that are available. Article 9B is also Clause 17D, and this is for the amount of the exemption itself. And it's also increased by the Consumer Price Index, which is set by the Department of Revenue annually. For fiscal '23, that was '24, it was $293. So we're asking to adopt Clause 17F to increase the exemption amount each year by the Consumer Price Index set by the Department of Revenue. Article 9C is for Clause 41A, which is tax deferrals, people the age 65 or older who currently have an income of $51,000, and this is their main domicile. They have lived in Massachusetts for over 10 years and owned the property for at least 5. They can defer their taxes up to 100%, for a total equivalent of 50% of the value of the home plus the interest. The current interest rate is 4%. So for fiscal '23, we only had 10 recipients. We're trying to increase that to help people be able to stay in their homes. There is a lien that is placed on the property because the town is deferring the taxes. So we're asking for the income limit to increase each year by adopting the COLA that would be used. If we had adopted it, it's not the COLA. It is the senior head of household based on the circuit breaker. And in 2011, we did adopt it, but we didn't ask for it to be increased annually. So since that time, it's been $51,000. And we have had people that say, we make more than that, but we need a little bit of help. So we thought if we could start increasing that income limit each year, that would help them. The circuit breaker for non-head of household for '23 was $69,000. So we're asking to adopt this for Article 9C. And this would begin for fiscal '25, all of these exemptions. Article 9D, in the agenda, it said deferral, but it's actually the elderly exemption. So currently we have Clause 41C, which is for elderly people, people age 65 or older, who it's their main domicile, reside in Massachusetts for 10 years, and own property in Massachusetts for over 5. Currently, we have gross receipts of $20,000 for single and $30,000 for married. And the whole estate, excluding the home, for single could not exceed $40,000, and for married cannot exceed $55,000. We only had 70 people qualify last year. We're trying to reach this, get more people to be able to. So we're asking to increase each year by the COLA for the asset and the income. And then it would become Clause 41D. If we had adopted it last year, the gross receipts for single would be $21,300, and for married would be $31,950. Doesn't seem like a lot, but cumulatively, we hope that more people will be able to qualify for this. For the whole estate, a single person, if we had adopted it, was $42,600. For a married, if we adopted it, it would be $58,575. So again, we're asking for this to help encourage more people to be able to qualify for the exemptions that are available. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Dunn? Mr. Helm?
I would just like to thank you for researching 9C and suggesting this much-needed adjustment, which would put us in line with basically every other community.
Right.
We are woefully, woefully behind for our seniors in this area. So I really appreciate your doing this.
I have to echo Mr. Helm. But I have a question on 9D, Ann. And will that increase annually now? So you don't have to wait a couple of years?
That's how the article is written.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Annual, as of July 1st, 2024, thereafter.
It'll annually just,
Yes.
awesome. Wishes of the board. We can take them all at once if the board so see.
I would make a motion that we recommend to town meeting Articles 9A through 9D. Recommend to town meeting and include on the warrant.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Canty, second by Mr. Mahoney. Discussion? Mr. Blitzer?
I vote yes.
Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney? Yes. And myself, yes, unanimous.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
support.
I had asked the gentleman from Red Brook just to come on in and not go through the whole article, but maybe the three major changes, because I think they're important, and I think you did a good job, so if you don't mind. And I do apologize for the lengthy little debate we had going, but sometimes that happens here.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have, I'm not sure if that works, but I do have paper copies, if you guys would want paper copies of what you're
Yep,
going to look
we
at.
have paper.
Oh, you already got some? All right, excellent. So my name is Dan Gorska. I work for the 80 Makepeace Company down at the Red Brook Development. I also have Walter O'Haney in here from the Grantham Group in case there was something specific for them. I'll spend most of my time probably on this slide and then go to something else really quick. So over the last couple months since the proposal was first known, we've had a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations, a lot of it focused towards our community, and one of the biggest things was the location and the orientation of the building. So since our last meeting, this was the same location, but from the initial phase, it was across the street. We now moved it over here, and for those that aren't familiar, it's on the corner of River Run Way and Wareham Road. It's on the northeast corner. Out of some of the residential conversations we had with our residents, they asked about flipping the building a little bit so it wasn't fully massing along Wareham Road. So we were able to flip the building. So now majority of the massing is adjacent to the Red Brook Apartments, which again has buildings of the same size and magnitude. And then the other L shape is then adjacent to existing woodland. So another big item about site-related issues was parking. So the zoning bylaw required a half a space per unit. We showed initially 70% of the units parked. This plan right here shows a 1-to-1 ratio within the site. We also eliminated the head-in on-street parking that was initially proposed. I know people have concerns with those. We are showing proposed on-street parking, but parallel instead of head-in on Wareham Road. That's consistent with what's out there today. The 1-to-1 parking ratio is all internal to the site. That doesn't include some of the parallel spaces. And then also within this packet, there's an aerial rendering of the plan. We also showed another area just behind the building in the event that planning board would require additional parking, or in the event that the facility was under-parked, there's an area to expand parking in the rear of the site. If you don't mind going to the second page really quick. Thanks, and I'll go over this briefly. The other biggest change was we've had a lot of conversations, mostly with officials like yourselves, about the unit count and how that ties to Red Brook. So we went back between Grantham and ourselves and looked at the new location with the unit count. And what we're proposing now is to increase the unit count from 52 to 62 units. Those additional 10 units, what we're proposing, would be in addition to Red Brook's initial commitment. So those would be above and beyond Red Brook's special permit commitment. Again, just like last time, all 60 units are affordable, all qualify for the SHI in the town. The breakdown is on your right. So we have 19 units at or below 80% AMI. 30 of them are at or below 60, and then we were able to do 13 units at or below 30% AMI. And again, all of it's, it's geared and targeted to low-income seniors. And if you don't mind going to the next slide, and I'll be brief here. This is just a summary of mostly what I just said, but again, the collaborative process of working together, able to alleviate those neighbor concerns about the location, orientation of the building, those 10 additional units. And another important statement is this doesn't, the request for funds from CPA or Affordable Housing Trust does not change. So these additional 10 units are at the same amount of requested revenue. And then one more slide, if you don't mind. And I won't go over this too much unless you guys have questions, but we just felt this was important to note. The next one, please. So from a buy-down perspective, the CPA funds, what this allows to happen is buying down that traditional debt when you're financing a project like this. And if you look all the way over to the right, what we're trying to do is show folks that in a situation like the Grantham, that gray box is essentially what you're buying down in monthly rent payments. So as you can see to the far left, that's like a market condition. The next condition over would be 25% affordable at 80%. The other one would be a project of all 80%. But what we're doing here is what's starred in that blue. And so you can see it's almost nearly half the revenue in a typical market situation. And that's what that buy down allows this project to do. And that happens in perpetuity. And if you don't mind, one more slide. This would just show it on a yearly basis. You can see now in a year, again, that buy down is nearly $800,000 of reduced rent over the course of the year. And that's what's allowing these seniors that are in a less fortunate situation than some be able to afford a place to rent. And then one last one, I promise. This next one was just showing in a 5-year basis. So this would be a 5-year Grantham project, and that's revenue over 5 years, year 1 through 5. That red line that you see sloping up to the right, that's the amount of gap, that rent reduction. And if you see over a 5-year period of this project, including some increases in rent, it's nearly $4.5 million of rent savings to those people living there. So I just thought it would be a nice little graph to point that out. And then there is a site plan. If you guys, if you want to scroll through not the next one, but the one after that. Those are just the funding sources. They stay the same, except candidly, this is a new location, so the Makepeace Company is going to create this site at pad ready with the utility connections for the Grantham Group. So that's just some more value there. And then the last one is just the proposed site plan. Again, if you had questions about that, we can go over it. And then one more, sorry, I made a mistake. Just the last one, just to summarize it again to the folks. 62 units, all 100% affordable, all qualify for the SHI. 70% local preference at initial lease up, which would be requested by this board. And then what this does is the request per door. If you guys remember, we were at about $77,000. Now the request is south of $65,000. So per door cost to CPA funds is now $64,520. And with that, if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I want to thank you for coming in and making the changes, working with the people that live there, the residents. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to run back to the licenses and administrative notes. Any questions on any of them?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, but I did want to say something in regards to Administrative Note 11.
Okay.
Administrative Note 11 is the board will vote to approve a request from the Memorials Advisory Committee for a memorial for Colin Hooley. It's a supporting memo attached. Colin is a high school classmate of mine. We had gym class together, junior and senior year. I was friends with Colin in high school. We didn't stay in touch afterwards, but I always found Colin to be kind, funny. He was a good person to spend time with, and to the extent that it gives any comfort to the family for his loss, he is well remembered by the people that he encountered in his life.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on any administrative notes? Wish of the board?
I would make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve all of the licenses and the 14 administrative notes as a group.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Canty, second by Mr. Helm. Discussion? Mr. Bledsoe?
I vote yes.
Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Anyone wishing to speak under public comment? Please identify yourself for the record and make sure the green light's on. Banner, is anybody online? That was a good job on the screen there.
Everett Malaguti, Precinct 2. I just have one thing, and it just went on my radar earlier today. That has been a discussion topic for a few years from various departments or residents and town meeting reps. The entrance and exit to Industrial Park on Cherry Street and Nixark Road, as for a number of years with the growth of the Industrial Park and Commerce Way, and now with growth at both ends of Cherry Street and Nixark Road due to other developments and housing and apartment developments. I'm wanting to know if there is going to be possibly a study on a need for possible traffic lights and signaling for that area. The entrance and exit is at a very odd angle when you're coming out of Industrial Park Road, that the angle is tilted and there's not really that best of sight line as both lines of traffic exiting try and beat each other out to have better view perspective. And I think that this should be looked at as a study initially, because I remember back when we did have the old exit 7 on and off ramp in that area, that there was a lot better traffic flow with the lights that were there close to Squanto. And now the traffic has increased on there without any signaling, and the traffic flow isn't as best as it should be. And I think that this is an issue that could be a priority, especially if we're looking at intensifying uses within the industrial park for helping with tax bases and all that, plus with commercial and residential growth surrounding that property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malaguti. Anyone else wishing to speak under public comment? Jew? Okay. Mr. Donato?
Hi.
Okay, Kimberly, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Al Donato, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 17.
You didn't hear me.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we give you 3 minutes. Go ahead, Al.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll very quickly, back to the Red Brook article, which is Article 16C. Originally, as many of you know, this was located at the original location off Sunflower, 2 blocks from where I'm at my house. So that was a major bone of contention for the neighbors. And like I said to many people, that location was just a terrible location. And I didn't care if it was really Mother Teresa building the Sistine Chapel. It just was not a great location. Since this has moved across the street, I'm finding most of my neighbors are in favor of this. As people, and I've talked to many town meeting members outside of the precinct, as they understand the numbers, the true numbers of this subsidy, and I've asked AD Makepeace to come up with this sort of chart tonight, because if we really pay attention to that, we will technically recoup that $4 million in the subsidy that's going to be enjoyed by citizens that they would not normally get. And Selectman Harry Helm and I have had this discussion that is something that really the folks of Plymouth need to understand. And if we really do a calculation of the life of that building, over 40 years, we'll say, we're going to recoup that money 3 or 4 times back for a greater affordability. There will be many people in Red Brook that may want to stay there, that in the future they can't afford their property, that they'll be able to remain on the property at Red Brook if they lose a partner, or as, cost of living goes as we live older. So I am really just urging town meeting members and others to really get their mind around these numbers, and you'll see that the numbers work. And in closing, obviously they have to go to planning board. There's mitigation issues. There's a dozen issues that I think we really need to dovetail to mop up this final few years over at Red Brook. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other resident engineers? Can you hear us? Please identify yourself for the record, and I apologize. I didn't realize that you were first up on the screen, so accept my apologies for that.
No worries whatsoever, Chairman. So thank you, folks. I'm Kimberly Karras, and I live at 9 Sunflower Way in Plymouth in the Red Brook development. So I'm just chiming in on Article 16C. Just a couple points I want to make, just for clarification. As to Mr. Gorsica's representation that there have been many meetings, there's only been one meeting since we saw you last, and that was with only the select few abutters. And I give AD Makepeace credit for making some changes that we asked at that meeting, but there has been no widespread community meeting with the entire Red Brook community that was promised to you, Mr. Chair, from AD Makepeace at the last meeting, or even a recommendation or a suggestion that you would, or your colleagues would help find space available in a nearby school or something to that effect, so that the whole community could be involved. That's not happened. There's not been a whole community meeting. There's been one meeting with a small group of abutters. So that's a misrepresentation on ADM's behalf. Two, I think that the concept is a fabulous one, and my concern, and I'm happy with the new location. I have two concerns. One is, why aren't we including families? The housing production plan of the town speaks to the need of families as in a dire situation, as opposed to the elderly, which were in a much lower bracket percentage-wise. So why are we excluding families and people in most need with this affordable housing? And then if we are going to exclude families and keep this to just elderly, under the law, the elderly includes the disabled, and I still have issues. And Selectman Helm was, great to point out that there that he is working, I think, with the Center for Senior Active Living to work on transportation. But I just think it's a total disservice. And I've said this before, I have a disabled sister who, relies on a wheelchair. And if I would love nothing better to have her close to me, but there is no transportation to service physically disabled people. So, you'd end up with basically, de facto discrimination by excluding them, because they wouldn't be able to come to Red Brook. And shouldn't that be all encompassing to, if it's disabled? If it's elderly, it's elderly and disabled by law, and we can't provide the necessary infrastructure. I did ask ADM, since they are such a wealthy landowner and business entity, if they would be willing to donate to the senior center, maybe 2 wheelchair accessible vans.
Excuse me, it's been a little over 3 minutes. You almost finished, or how much more time would you like?
He gave me his 3 minutes right here, my neighbor.
I'm awake.
If that's okay, or he can finish up for me, but I'm almost done. But basically, the ADM has not responded to that. But there's no reason why they can't contribute to infrastructure to help the disabled with this plan. And you can't exclude the disabled when in the elderly formulation under the law. So those are just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Thank you very much. I'm going to bring it back. No one else wishing to speak under public comment? No? Okay. Town Manager's report, please.
All right, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So I got a few updates for this evening. First, I'd like to start out by complimenting and thanking Mr. Paul McGee and the full Disability Commission. Last week, they made 2 grant awards. One was to the Stevens Field group, who will now use that money to purchase a ADA accessible wheelchair swing for the Stevens Field project. So that'll be great for the youth to enjoy. And then the second was they provided funding for an ADA accessible front desk at the Cal. So as you know, when you first approach that desk, it's very high, so there'll be funds used to lower portions of that front desk to make it more accessible. So again, thanks to the Disability Commission for those 2 grant awards. Water Street update. So last week and early this part of this week, they've already installed 2 lengths of sewer main pipe. So that project is moving along very well. Again, we have a target date to be out of there by June 30th, but if things continue to progress the way they are right now, we expect to be out much sooner than the June 30th target date. The Brook Street Bridge project will begin on March 4th. As you all know, the police chief is working on a memorial for fallen police officers that have served the town of Plymouth, giving you advance notice that during Police Week in May, we will hold a ribbon-cutting ceremony for the new memorial. So we have our town clerk in the room this evening, Ms. McElrath, along with our IT director, Joe Young. They presented a new policy to COPC last week around how to use town's technology for hybrid meetings. This policy was presented. We got positive feedback from COPC members. We expect to bring this policy to the select board next week for final ratification. This policy, in essence, goes over how to use the technology, like the OWL, for example, the requirements around the open meeting law, and how to post the link for all of our boards and committees. So we brought this to COPC first because we know that the caucus meetings are beginning soon, and we've received a lot of questions and requests from various chairs of those precincts so that they can hold hybrid meetings. So we'll bring this policy forward next week to the board. We will be hosting a tabletop exercise on cybersecurity on March 12th down at the EOC. So as you all know, we've talked a lot about cybersecurity in the past. There's been a number of municipalities who have been held hostage by spamware, for example, and ransomware. So we're actively working, again, with our IT department, being led by our IT director, been pursuing a number of different cybersecurity grants. So in fact, Joe Young is working with the school department on $200,000 cybersecurity grant, along with many other training opportunities. We've been invited by Mr. Vinny DiMacedo, when I say we, myself and the board, to go to Bridgewater State and tour their new cyber security training program they have at Bridgewater State. So there's a lot of things happening in the cybersecurity world, and we're trying to take full advantage of those opportunities. As of last week, the Finance Department launched the new water sewer online payment program. So we started with water and sewer bills. We're going to be rolling into motor vehicle excise tax in the next couple of weeks. But this new online tool allows folks to set up a bunch of different functions. So as you all know, it seems to me in the last couple of years, in the month of May, we got a lot of complaints of folks complaining once they get their demand notices that they are not receiving their bills. With this new functionality we have now, folks can sign up for auto pay. They can sign up for automatic notifications, so they'll get an email push to them to say that you have your excise bill that has to be paid, for example. You can schedule recurring payments, and then you can also get paperless billing as well. So we just rolled this out last week for the water and sewer bills. We're going to be rolling it out with motor vehicle excise, and all of our billing in the future can be online billing if folks choose to use these new features. So again, so the folks that tell us moving forward that they haven't received their bills, we're going to encourage them to sign up to this program because you'll get all this stuff sent to your inbox via email. So again, many thanks to the Finance Department for putting that program together. They have heard the complaints over the last couple of years loud and clear. Just as a reminder to folks, again, something else I've heard in my first 2 years that from town meeting members that there's not enough dialogue around the budget process. So I just want to remind folks that tomorrow night in this room at 7 p.m., the Finance Committee will hold its annual budget hearing. So the Finance Committee will present through all the different subcommittees in the enterprise accounts so that town meeting members who are interested and those folks in the general public can participate in that hearing as well. And then last, I will end with an announcement on the elections. So early voting will begin this coming Saturday, the 24th, and Sunday, the 25th. Early voting will take place in this room from 9 a.m. This room? the atrium. Will take place in the atrium from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., again this weekend, and then we will hold early voting Monday through Friday in the atrium during regular town hall hours. So one stat that our town clerk brought up last week at COPC, we've received, well, the town clerk's office has received 9,000 requests for mail-in ballots. So in the context of the January or the last May's election, for example, I think we had about a little north of 7,200 folks that had participated in the election by casting a ballot. And this year, they've already received 9,000 requests for mail-in ballots. So we expect it's going to be a large turnout. So that's 9,000 ballots have to be mailed out for Super Tuesday on March 5th. Those ballots have to be mailed out for the local election in May. Those ballots have to be mailed out for the primaries in September, and they have to be mailed out for the November election as well. On top of the election that we just had in January, that's 5 elections the town clerk's office has to manage in this calendar year. So it's a lot of work that's coming out of that little shop. So we appreciate all the work that they're doing downstairs. As far as costs associated, so I think I reported at last week's meeting that the January election referendum vote cost the town about $50,000. So again, 50 times 5. We're guesstimating is going to be at least $250,000, probably closer to $275,000 to $280,000 to host all 5 elections this calendar year. So again, a lot's going on in the election world. We are happy to report that I think next week we are bringing on for the first time ever an elections coordinator. It's a new position. We're funding it from an old position that we are not going to fill, and we're using those dollars to fill the position as a new election coordinator. So again, a lot of work that we need in that arena. So pending any questions, that's all I have for this evening.
Any questions or comments from Derek? For Derek? Mr. Bledsoe?
Yeah, Derek, the police memorial, where is that going to be? When is it, and where is it going to be?
Good question. So it's going to be at the police station. There's a bunch of bushes in the front of the building. That's going to be placed right there.
It's going to be right there?
Yep.
Okay. And what's the date on that?
I can get you the exact date,
if you don't
but
have
it's
it.
going to be it's going to be Police Week in May. It's going to be in May.
Great. That's a great thing. Yep. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Derek, following up on Mr. Malaguti's request to look at the entrances to the park, or also maybe while we're in the park, the 4-way stop. There's a lot of not stopping there, at least 2 or 3 times a week. It's very, there's a lot of accidents if we're in the area. And to touch on your Water Street project, I heard things went very well today. They're past the old Isaacs or 71 West. They're past their driveway, so they're moving right along. So that's very nice to hear. Okay, seeing no other comments. Do you have something else,
Just
Charlie?
one on that 4-way
go ahead.
stop,
Go ahead.
about them not stopping.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I had a constituent call me and said there's a panhandler out there, so he's stopping the traffic, so he's probably helping with the 4-way stop. But no, all kidding aside, it's a dangerous situation. Anyway, I just want to report that.
Thank you. Anything under new business? I just wanted to bring up that the current charter says that if a select board wishes, they may sit in on, we'll call it negotiations, on one of the groups or more than one of the groups. I know Derek brought it up this week, so I wanted to bring it up with the board, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. That's all well and good. So if you're interested in that, I maybe suggest talking to Mr. Brindisi and setting that up. I would like to, if nobody has any objections, I'd like to sit in on the school negotiations. I sat in on them the last round, and I think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but I'm always up for a challenge. That's why I'm here. So, and I have a pretty decent relationship with them more than anything, so I'd like to see if we can continue that. I know some of the needs from the last round, and we'll see what happens. If nobody has an objection, I don't want to, All right. Enough with that, with me. Anything under letters? Old business? Mr. Mahoney?
Yeah, Mr. Town Manager, I had sent you an email from a constituent asking about the status of, I think it was Fall Town Meeting of 22, Article 15, with respect to speed limit changes.
So this question came up at last week's COPC meeting. The question was asked by a COPC member as to the update on the thickly settled speed limit changes. And as we pointed out last week, and we're not making excuses, we have been down a town engineer for the better part of 2.5 years. We no longer have a transportation engineer, and we're also down a civil engineer technician position. So the engineering department as a whole that would be managing this part of the project is down 3 full-time staff out of a staff of total of 7, so a little less than 50%. However, I did speak with the DPW director today about this. He has said that he has made it a priority of the assistant DPW director. So we're expecting to probably in the next, I would say, 30 to 45 days, start to get some of those thickly settled signs out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other thing under old business, new business, letters? Motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn, having concluded our business for the evening.
Second by Mr. Mahoney. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. Unanimous. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in a week.